but it is now streaming live. I'm getting that. You should be too. So if this goes on, and we have to do this a lot, we may have to visit that concept. I'm not sure what the options are as far as allowing them to be able to question, but by law, we only have to make it available for them to listen and observe. Mary Jane said that they had good luck with people raising hands when they wanted to speak in your financial committee meeting. Does that work? So
yes.
we talk over each other. Okay.
All right, the broadcast is showing up on our Lake Lemon Conservancy board meeting YouTube page. So
Good.
Very good.
we should be good to go.
Okay. This is the first meeting of its kind for the Conservancy District. There are a lot of firsts in this time frame. Mary Jane said that they had good luck with people raising hands when they wanted to speak. Your financial committee meeting.
You need to turn down the YouTube.
Yes, over each other. Okay.
All right, the broadcast is showing up on our Lake Lemon Conservancy board meeting YouTube page. Is that on me? Oh, wait a second. We should be good to go. All right, sorry. It's open in the back window. All right.
Okay. Are we good?
Yep.
All right. Thanks for your time, guys. I think we can be pretty efficient getting through this. Raise your hand to speak. As we said, I think we can do voice votes except for conflict of interest. We might do a roll call so that it's designated that Laura would be abstaining. Does that make sense? Unless I'm uncertain of a vote.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions before we start, given that this is a very different format for us? You all good?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Alex?
Malcolm says he got it up.
Okay, good.
All right. First order of business would be the approval of the February 27th, 2020 board meeting minutes. As usual, any corrections, additions, or deletions?
Nope.
Michael? Oh, two Michaels. Michael Klitzing.
I move to approve.
Just one correction.
Yes, Mike.
On the dredging priorities, Chitwood, Dorothy Lane, and Whittigren's Cove, if we get the time to get in there.
Were those not listed as you just stated?
I didn't see District 4.
I think in the meeting, we've decided to do the first two and then revisit it a little bit later in the season to add on the other.
Oh, okay. And that wasn't in there either. So just to revisit it or whatever, which is usually what we do, but just want to, I play golf with Jay and I don't want him to, hound me this whole summer. That's
Okay.
all.
Yes, Debbie?
When I read that too, I felt like there was definite discussion. Maybe we could put that in there, that it was going to be up to the Lake Health Task Group to meet, and determine these dredging. I thought we said that in the meeting.
I think I remember that as well. Mike Blackwell, does that sound reasonable?
Either revisit it or that we were going to look at it. I'm sure Laura remembers a little
Yes.
bit.
Yes, we did discuss that.
Mm-hmm. We'll
Michael,
add that in there.
Michael Klitzing, did you have something?
Nope.
You had a hand up at.
I moved to approve as amended.
Okay, so you still moved. Very, very good. Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Mary Jane has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Hey,
opposed?
can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, Les, we can hear you.
One of
Okay.
the things, Pam, I should raise my hand.
Yes,
I do think that the executive order says that they recommend that you do a roll call vote.
for every vote.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then that's what we'll do. Let's go backward a little bit. Can we restate that motion, please?
So it was a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
All right, and there was a second, Mary Jane?
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the February 27th board meeting minutes. I'm just going to go across my screen. Laura, how do you vote?
Aye.
Michael Klitzing,
Aye.
Mary Jane,
Aye.
Michael Blackwell,
Yes.
Deborah Ladyman,
Yes, aye.
And Pam Dugan, aye.
And Les is on audio now.
Yeah, you should hear me.
Okay.
Are you
Les,
hearing me?
voting on approval of the February 7th minutes.
Yeah, I got all that. Aye.
Okay, thank you. The vote is unanimous. All right, next item of business is report of claims for February 2020. Mike Blackwell.
Income, $9,375 for February. Expenses, $20,218. Net income, a negative $10,843, basically salaries. Salaries with retirement, season and launch permit, coupons, some building and grounds supplies. So if there are not any questions about the report of claims, I guess I will accept a motion for approval.
I motion to approve.
Second.
So motion's been approved and seconded. Any discussion? Madam Chair, do you want me to go across the screen?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
So I am a yes. Laura,
Yes.
Michael Klitzing,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes,
Mary Jane,
Aye.
and Les,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Aye.
Motion is approved for the report of claims. So we're on Adam's section here. Do you want me to go on a treasurer's report or now go to professional services?
I'll do professional services. I really didn't explain it. Well, I kind of put those together in the future where we can just vote on all those if we've read them and agree on them, just approve it at once. But I'll go ahead and go through those real quick. Unless I'll just go ahead and go through those.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the professional service agreement with Ken Mullis. This is who we utilize to haul out debris that we clear up on the end of the causeway. Really hasn't raised our prices in a decade. It's $250 per load, and that's when we rent the excavator, and he kind of loads it up and brings it over to our disposal site for us. There was a correction of the contract that you guys see. One of the dates is wrong, and it has been updated to show the year of 2020. So if there's no discussion, I would like to seek a motion to approve the professional services agreement for debris hauling with Ken Mullis.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Oh, I think Debbie has her hand up.
Oh, hi, Debbie. Yes.
I just had a question. What is
Sure.
the total amount we usually spend on that? It's like 250 per truckload is what we're approving. And I was just curious.
On
what
a
the-
really heavy year, it may be usually I'd say 2 to 3 truckloads. I don't think we've ever gone over $1,000 on it.
Thank you.
That's a good question. All right, has it been moved and seconded that we approved the Ken Mullis lake debris removal?
Well, I motioned it and so did Mary Jane. So I'm not
We
sure.
got Mary Jane Brown and
Right.
Pam
Okay.
Dugan as a second.
So let's go across. Laura, vote
Yes.
please.
Aye.
Michael Klitzing,
Aye.
Mary Jane,
Aye.
Mike,
Yes,
Blackwell,
yes.
Deborah,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you. Motion carries.
So do I.
Les,
I'm sorry.
Got us.
I'm sorry, Les. It's throwing me not being able to see your face.
I got a smile face drawn there.
Okay, motion carries. Next up is the fireworks contract. Adam, if you want to go ahead with that.
Yeah, next we have the Independence Day fireworks contract. It's the same company that we used before. It is for $8,000, which we approved in the budget. I expect there to be maybe some discussion on this since it is an event moving forward in the summer and who knows what things will be like. I do think that if we were to hold it, we could still have boaters. I do think the park may be an issue, and if we were to go with it and we're still not allowed to have parks open, that may be something where we'd have to block off access from the general public at the park. So I don't know if we want to have some discussion on that.
I have a question. I guess I have to raise my own hand. What is the process by which we reserve, do we put a deposit down? Can you remind me how that goes?
So the way the contract is written, since they really only charge us for the shells and insurance because they're local, what we do is they buy the shells and we reimburse them for that. So once they approve the contract, they will order the shells. And if we decided to cancel the show, we still own the shells, and it could push it back later on if we needed to. But this one is one that once we go with it, if we were for some reason decide to cancel it, we'd still have the money being paid out.
Is there a shelf life on those?
I don't think so. I think as long as I would want to say we'd probably have to do it within the year.
Well, the Indy 500 is now in the fall, so we can do the fall show.
If
Debbie?
if we could get the date. The question is, if we go ahead and have it just for our freeholders and our residents and voting, can we still make it work financially then? Like, or will,
Good question.
do we all contribute enough so that we would cover the cost, or are we really relying on the public?
The majority is from our freeholders that we get. I don't know if you remember exactly, Alex, but I don't think we've ever gotten over 1,000 at the gate.
It was, I think it was somewhere around 1,200 from the gate last year. And then the remainder of the basically 7,000 came from freeholders.
So it's not a very large portion.
The other thing to consider would be if we have to move the date, will that impact people's giving and or ability to attend amidst our freeholders? Thoughts? Michael?
I think with how uncertain everything is, it's really hard to make a huge projection on that. I mean, I do think that there's going to be a strong interest in having something that resembles normalcy, whether it's on around the 4th or it's later in the year. So I think at the point that people can actually do something, especially an event like this that is pretty well cherished, especially by our freeholders, I think it's something that would be well appreciated. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, while I certainly can't guarantee that it wouldn't impact donations, I think it means a lot to the freeholders. So I think there's a reasonable chance, not a guaranteed chance, but a reasonable chance that we could at least get close to covering.
Mary Jane?
I would agree with Michael Klitzing, because I think it would be worse if we didn't move forward and then suddenly it was okay and people would be like, where's our fireworks show? And I really believe at this stage of the game, anything we can do that will bring joy and happiness to people is probably a great thing to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be that we're still in some kind of distancing, but what better place to distance than on your boat?
All right. Well, with those discussions, I would go ahead and recommend approval of the 2020 fireworks contract for the amount of $8,000.
May I have a motion, please?
Motion to.
I'll move.
Thank you, Debbie. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary Jane. All right, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the 2020 fireworks contract. Although, vote, Laura, please.
Aye.
Michael K.
Aye.
Mary Jane.
Aye.
Mike B.
Yes.
Deborah.
Yes.
Les.
Aye.
Aye. All motion carries.
All right. Next, we have our 2020 annual board member conflict of interest policy. This is annual. Currently, the only conflict is Laura with the marina. She actually can vote on this one. The one that she had to abstain from was the one that we did when we signed our contracts for pass sales.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody still can vote on this one and just list any potential conflicts. So inside this, the only one that we do have is the Lake Lemon Marina with slip and pass sales. This is kind of an annual thing and required of us. So if we don't have any discussion, I would go ahead and recommend a motion to approve the 2020 annual board member conflict of interest policy.
So moved.
I'll make that.
Michael K has motioned. Would you like to second, Mary Jane?
I would.
Thank you. All right, let's vote. Laura,
Aye.
Michael K,
Aye.
Mary Jane,
Aye.
Mike B,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Les,
Yes.
me, aye. Motion carries. I'm getting better. This is new territory. Okay. Next is the annual, I'm sorry, the treasurer's report. We're to you, Mike. We did do that a little bit out of order, but thanks for your patience.
You know, if no one has any questions or discussion about the financial highlights, I can move on to the cumulative improvement fund update. I may let Adam take this one to give us a timeline of where we're at on that. I know the State Board of Accounts has extended that to June 30th, I believe. Adam?
Yes, so we approved the resolutions and have advertised in the newspapers. Actually, there's a 30-day period for rebuttal to sign a petition to cancel this. I have not heard from any of the county auditors yet or collectors about that. Tomorrow on April 10th is actually the end of the 30-day period that was set in motion when we advertised in the newspaper that we had approved the resolution to pass this. So after tomorrow on Monday, what I will be doing is calling both the county offices tomorrow and seeing if I can get forms, if there were or were not any petitions for rebuttal. If there were not, they will sign off on a document saying that there was not. Then we'll submit our resolutions, proofs of advertising, and then the papers from the counties to Department of Local Government Finance. At that point, I believe they have 15 days to approve it. They got pushed back and they're running a little bit slow, but our steps are essentially done other than getting the signatory of no contest and then sending it into the Department of Local Government Finance. And that's that.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions on the cumulative improvement fund? Having none, 2021 budget timeline.
Hey, Mike,
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I don't know when you want Adam to address this, but being it's the financials, maybe we should talk about any potential impact of this pandemic on our finances or what Adam sees as the issues on our income.
I think one of the biggest ones that we'd potentially see is if the park is not allowed to open. I think even once we go back to kind of normal operations, it'll be interesting to see if the state legislature will allow public beaches and swimming pools to open for the remainder of the summer. I think that could potentially be an impact. I believe last year we brought in just a little over $50,000 through the revenue from the park alone. Right now, this time of season, it's primarily annual pass sales that we get. We will be advertising online and sending out a constant contact that starting next week on Mondays and Wednesdays, we're gonna have Alex in the office and do pass sales via the telephone and credit card, but still keeping the premises locked. That way there's no contact there. Right now, most of the pass sales are annuals, and I think we will get the majority of money from that. As we move into the June, July section, then we start transitioning to a lot more daily passes. So hopefully by that point we can have somebody in the gatehouse. I still think with the non-essentials and what's going on, I don't think it's a very good idea to have somebody in the gatehouse collecting money from people all over the state at this point in time. So there will likely be a little bit of reduction from daily sales. I did do an analysis from March 25th through April 15th. Last year we brought in just over $11,000 in pass sales. Of that, a little over 9,000 was the annual passes. So I think we'll be able to recover most of that. And we'll be going ahead and sending out an email that we're going to be doing pass sales over the phone. I think as we move forward, voting will be one of the few things that you can still do to get out. So hopefully maybe we'll see some increased revenue from passes. I think the biggest potential would be the park right now.
So Adam, are the annual boat permits, not the park access, but the boating permits, are they available now?
Yes, we're going to send out a constant contact and put on our Facebook that starting next week on Mondays and Wednesdays, we'll be doing annual pass sales over the phone via credit card, and we'll mail those out with a receipt to the people.
Okay.
Yes, Debbie?
Laura, is that something that you guys are doing too, or are you open at all?
Right now, I am just telling people to go ahead and launch their boats, and then I'm keeping a list, and they will come in and buy their permits when I'm open again.
Okay.
People that are running slips that are paying in advance for those permits, and they'll pick them up when I'm open again.
Can you get gas there right now? That question kind of came
Yes.
up.
So if people want to launch their boats for the season, they can launch their boats here. I can open the gate and let them in, and the fuel pump is open by credit card.
Thank you.
Mary Jane, did you have a question?
Yeah, and Laura kind of answered it. I had a second thought though, and that's that I got a text this afternoon from Kathy McClure about doing a newsletter. And I think this is a particular newsletter that the board needs to have quite a bit of input into, because I think it brings up not just what's going on right now. And as Adam was saying, he's going to send out an email about pass sales. I was thinking we need to have some thinking and discussion about a number of items that might be in a regular newsletter, and think about what are they and what should they be now, given the situation that we're in. Because we want to give people the information they need, but we don't want to set unrealistic expectations about what's going to happen, because we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody?
So are you?
Agreed.
And I did talk to Kathy when she was in here. That I was open one weekend and had too many people in here, and so I decided to close down. But Kathy was one of them that came in that day, and yes, she talked about the newsletter at that point, and I agree with it. And she said all of these things like what's the marina doing, because people are asking those questions. We're doing what we can, but I'm still keeping distance and keeping the whole building shut down. So that kind of stuff should be out there.
I actually would vote for not having a regular newsletter right now, and just doing some targeted bulletins that come from the lake manager.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that too. That way we can keep kind of an up to date more often about what's going on. And I can work on those.
And then Adam can send out the communications via constant contact and update the Facebook page, which I think would give us even better coverage than just the newsletter.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. This changes so quickly, as we're going along, because, the newsletter is kind of good for, a few months, and, this is happening weekly. So I agree, but people do need to know what's open, what isn't.
Right.
Obviously, the place is loaded with boats, if you've seen it.
Yes.
You can see him behind Alex. Deborah, did you have your hand up as well?
I was just going to say, this is a little bit related to Kathy, but the lemonade days and stuff like that, like any big time planning around the 4th, I think we need to keep that at bay. And the other thing that you didn't cover, Adam, on the finances was the fact that we may not get our property tax money on time because everybody's been given an extra 60 days to pay their taxes. So just FYI.
Yeah, what I can do is I can send out a contact tomorrow on Friday via constant contact and start working on the website to get some information that's going on, and then just do either weekly or bi-weekly updates. And I would like to just go ahead and send those from the office from myself via constant contact. And then we can discuss, I can discuss with Pam and Mary Jane after this about some things that I may not have thought about to include in those correspondences.
So you would draft them and then Mary Jane or Pam?
Yeah, I would draft them and take their input on the things that they think
Okay.
we should cover, and then send it out from the office.
That makes sense to me. Are you all in agreement?
Mhm.
I agree with that, but obviously, but I would like to, if Michael Klitzing has any things that he can share about the world of parks and
Yeah.
recreation that might help us think through things, I'd love to hear them.
Sure, I
I
mean,
was
happy
bugging-
to do so, right?
I was
right
bugging
now,
him earlier today.
yeah. Right now, it's, I mean, the actions that, you know, Adam and Alex have done are exactly right on course as far as, you know, shutting down the gatehouse so that we don't have those contacts, making sure that we're minimizing just interaction with the public, with our staff. So those actions have all been appropriate, given the type of park that we have. I mean, closing, I mean, you know, sort of keeping it in our winter operations mode, I think is all appropriate actions. I mean, where for us, we've, you know, the governor has mandated that playgrounds appropriately be closed. So that, I mean, those types of things are all done. We're all kind of in a wait and see to see how this plays out as far as the reopening of you know, operations, programming, what have you. Was on a conference call with the Indiana Park and Recreation Association yesterday, and everyone's kind of in that same where we're planning for summer, but at the same time cognizant that summer might get canceled or partially canceled.
All right.
And the impacts that can have on our budgets as well. So, you know, everything we're doing is pretty appropriate. At some point, probably during this meeting, we'll have a conversation about fishermen and boats and stuff, and we can comment more on that. But I'm happy to, you know, look and provide any feedback for those updates that are going to. But the big thing is just, you know, I was actually quoted in the USA Today I think it was last week. The weeks are all blurring together now. It's like, if we want to get back, yeah, if we want to get back to normal anytime soon, we've got to stop acting like normal. And I mean, that's just the key. It's like, use common sense and keep appropriate distancing so that we can prevent the spread and keep the curve flat and people out of the hospitals.
Absolutely. We'll talk about the under Park Master Plan. Why don't we talk more about the fishermen? Because I know I've received some concerns, and so has Laura, and we need to chat about that a little bit in that segment.
I have a question.
Yes,
Laura, is your gate open?
No, my gate is not open. We don't do daily launching here anyway, but lake residents know that they can call me if they want to launch their boats. I'll open it and let them in. They can launch and then just pay later. I'm just trying to work with them so that they can get out boating.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, Alex.
This is a slightly different topic. It can wait, but do you want me to put something in the chat on YouTube so I can make a sort of sign-in sheet to see who all attended the board meeting? Quote.
Can you do that easily?
Mhm.
Please.
That would be nice.
All right. Budget timeline, I think, is where we left off before we started talking a little bit about these things, Mike.
Okay. The office printed out the budget planner key dates for 2021 budget. I guess for our audience, I'll go ahead and read these, whether or not they got these in the packet or not. But April 9th, today, we're going to set our budget timeline. So tomorrow through June 20th, the committee, which I guess will form at the end of this, we will prepare our 2021 budget. June 20th, presentation of our 2021 budget, which should be at 10 a.m. at the park shelter. July 18th, that's my anniversary. Remember, my anniversary falls every now and then. It falls on a summer meeting. Anyway, that'll be our first public discussion of the 2021 budget. August 22nd, the second public discussion. there's a note there, all budget adjustments must be made by the conclusion of the August 22nd meeting, 2020. September 24th would be our public hearing. And then on October 22nd, again, if there's, as long as there's not a second wave of what we're suffering through right now, would be the adoption of the 2021 budget. Certainly no later than November 1st.
And that should say
Questions or
2020, not 2021.
Did I say 20? Oh, 2021.
No, I had it wrong in there. You had it correct.
Okay, apologize. So any questions on the timeline? And so, Madam Chair, the last year it was you, myself, Deborah, and Adam. Any thoughts?
I would be open.
Deborah.
I would be open to any other suggestions, but I'm happy with that if you all are.
I think it was a great plan and you all did a great job.
I agree.
Deborah?
I'd be fine with that. I just kind of wondered if maybe what about the finance committee? That thought.
Have someone from
I
that.
will tell you,
That's not a bad idea.
this,
The only thing, I'm sorry, Mike, the only thing I would say is I can't come to that because
Right.
you'll have to be board members.
But it could be another member of that committee.
Right.
Mike, what were you going to say?
from all the meetings that we've had on telephone and et cetera, that we called in, et cetera, this really worked, I thought. Kevin Fagan had really good ideas. Deborah, I thought that the sharing of ideas and being able to see everybody, we had a lot of good discussion, I thought.
Then
And-
I think you should plan to include Malcolm and Kevin and I'll just sit out.
Oh,
Why
So,
would you have to sit,
I agree.
why do you have to sit out?
Because we can't have 4 board members on
So-
this
So
committee.
you basically relinquish your spot to Pam is what you're saying.
Yes,
Because it's just the 3 of us right now, you, me, and
Right.
Mike.
right. But if Pam's there, then I can't be.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I mean, that's fine. I actually agree wholeheartedly with Mike's assessment that certainly the other members of the task group have added a lot to it. So why stop?
I'll give you your spot back if you want it.
Maybe we could trade off.
Well, we can say we've never had the finance task group in the past, so we can just say that we'll utilize the finance task group as our board budget committee. Then if we need to change out one of the board members or switch it up a little bit, we can do that. But we'll use the task group as the base of the committee. And I don't think we need any formal action on that, really just deciding who's going to be doing it.
Yeah.
that would be the end of the treasurer's report.
Okay.
All right, we'll get in one of the biggest things, the sediment management project. It's a little iffy and sporadic working with the regulatory agencies right now, since the majority are working from home and they're not able to do non-essential travel, if travel at all. So our on-site meetings have been canceled. We are still working with Christopher Burke to develop the site plans, and we'll move as far as forward as we can with the regulatory agencies as far as applying to our different permits and receiving their input. So we're still going to be moving forward with that. One of the biggest things that's coming up as far as timing, besides that, is ability to have public hearings. We will have to have a public hearing since we are utilizing tax dollars for the repayment of the bonds. So until we can have a public hearing, that pushes that back a little bit. I do have, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, one of the executive orders for the governor does provide provisions for allowing public hearings. So I haven't had to do that with the park board yet, but there is a mechanism by which, to some degree, it can be electronic, similar to this. So we can look into that a little bit further as well.
Well, sounds good. I do have right now Baker Tilly and the bond council and finance council I have them working up the draft bond resolution. So essentially, we will resolve that we're going to be issuing bonds for this project and utilizing the taxpayer dollars. We will approve that bond, and then in our tentative plans, once we do have the site designs, after that, we do have to hold the public hearing, and we'll have to advertise that. There are advertising requirements. After the public hearing, then we can start moving forward with the bonding process. So once I get the resolutions and updated timelines from them, I will share that with the board, and then we can assess the steps moving forward on that. But it seems to be, especially with the regulatory agencies, there's a chance it may be getting pushed back a little bit for now.
Who's our bond counsel again?
The bond counsel is
Patty Zelmer.
Patricia Zelmer. Yes, yeah, Patty Zelmer.
They also should be able to provide us. I'm sure Ice Miller has is up to speed on what's currently allowed, so they should be able to give us guidance as far as how to do the public hearing component in these digital COVID-19 ages. So
perfect. So that's kind of where we are on that. We're moving forward with the site design, and I'm moving forward with the council getting the bond resolutions and timelines. We'll bring that as soon as we have that. I do have some more discussion for finance, and I guess it does relate right back to the sediment management project. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll come back to the park stuff. First thing is the SRF versus private bonding project requirements. Some of the things that we are noticing is SRF is requiring some additional testing, such as archaeological site visits, an analysis, additional wetland analysis. And one of the things that we are going to have to do if we utilize SRF is utilize both of the disposal sites. Utilizing just the overflow pond will not fit the 100,000+ yards that we're hoping to remove. We believe the land-based site would be able to fit close to that, and I'll know more once I have our final site designs. But with the SRF, we are mandated to utilize the overflow pond and create a wetland there. They're also asking about the development of plans for wetland maintenance moving forward and such things as biomass harvesting, so actually removing plants to remove phosphorus and continuing that. So there are a lot more requirements that will be ongoing as far as management of the wetland, which does result back to time and money. If we were to go through the open bond market, the process for bonding is essentially the same, but we would be able to utilize potentially just the field site, the open field site, and not have to use both of them. Once we get the cost back from Baker Tilly, looking at the two different rates, we can discuss that a little bit more, and I'll try to come up with some financial impacts from one way or the other. So I think that's just kind of ongoing. Talking with Patricia Zelmer, I do have her writing the bond resolution to allow us to utilize SRF and the open market. So we'll give us leeway on that with the resolution.
One of the things, Adam, you might, to the degree that we can, if we can estimate, those ongoing costs, if we go the SRF route versus the private market too. That way, I mean, even maybe SRF we can get a lower rate, but if the ongoing cost is more, it might be close to a wash.
Yeah. And when I was working with a couple of the wetland companies that actually plant this stuff, they're estimating around $4,000 to $5,000 per acre planting. So if we do have to plant, say, 10 acres of wetland, we're looking at $50,000 just in the planting, which would come out of potential sediment removal. But I will work on something, and we'll come back to the board once we have those options with the different financial impacts.
Debbie?
I think that we will discuss the impact. My guess is on private bonding, and Michael Klitzen, you might know the answer to this, but in terms of the due diligence, packaging and everything we would have to put together, you really probably ought to ask our bond counsel what that would entail and how much money, because like right now, like the bond issues I've been involved with, somebody like an SRF has been the umbrella. So you're kind of going with all these other people, and it's not, as much as much individual work, but the cost of issuance might be different. I don't know.
I can find out about that. Take some notes here. So we're moving forward on that. There may be some delays. We're doing as much as we can now, and hopefully we can progress as we can. Along with that also is the purchase, and we actually discussed this in our finance task group, of an off-road dump truck. We have had in the projected bond revenues that the 0.2 million is $200,000 for a new off-road utility truck. We're hoping ours would last until we had those revenues. Last November it quit working. It's a 1987 European truck, and there's really not any good way to put money into it. So we will have to purchase a truck to do any maintenance or private dredging, and even site prep in the field location for the sediment management project. So the purchase of the truck has always been part of the sediment management project moving forward. What I would like to do is try to speed up the timeline of acquisition for this truck. With the cost that we're looking at, we will have to go through a bid process. And I will be talking with the Department of Local Government Financing about the bid process for loans through banks. As a government entity, we are limited to 2-year notes with the potential for a 2-year extension. So you can amortize it over 4 years and either pay it off at 2 years or extend for 2 years. But the maximum term limit for a note would be 4 years. We're looking, and some of the trucks that I found are kind of right in the $230,000, $240,000 range. We had some discussions about renting versus buying. They're very expensive to rent, upwards of $12,000 to $14,000 per month to rent, rain or shine. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that a newer used truck would be in our best interest. I have seen some as new as 2017 that are about $100,000 less than new, being around $350,000 for new, about $230,000 for a used one that's only 3 years old. What I would like to do, if I get the permission, is to go ahead and utilize our equipment bidding procedures that we have in the past for our dredging equipment and other excavator, and go ahead and start that and start looking what we can get from banks as far as rates. And I think as long as we just kind of approve to move forward with that, once I can receive bids, which would probably be in about 3 weeks, we could always call together another board meeting to review the bids and then potentially yay or nay on both a bond and purchase. I do have one of the trucks that we're looking at is actually getting delivered Monday. It's a little bit smaller than what we currently use, but we think it may have some benefits as far as usability within our compact site. So we are going to be renting that for a week to do site prep disposal, and that way we can actually test out one of the exact units that would be up for potential purchase. I'd like to open that up for discussion, but I think we need to find a solution to move quick with the acquisition of a truck, just so we continue our normal operation.
I'd like to hear from those of you that were in that meeting, your thoughts, Debbie, Mary Jane, Mike B. Go ahead.
Okay, so the truck that's going to be delivered on Monday, Adam and Clinton will be using that, I think, possibly for a week to see if that's going to do what they need. It's a 25-ton versus the 40-ton we currently have. But I'm, since we discussed this pretty heavily in the finance committee, I'm of the thought that if this particular truck works, it is a 25-ton truck. Now, this is where Kevin Fagan really had some good ideas. He pressed Adam to negotiate with these folks, once we get that truck down here, and see really what their bottom dollar is. And I certainly endorse that. And Chris McAllister, a lot of firemen here know who he is. He's a race enthusiast. So once we get that truck here, I'm gonna press forward and try to get Chris to give us his best deal on that truck. But I hope the 25-ton truck works. So and we've got to continue our operations. So that's what I have to provide from the committee.
In my discussions with McAllister as well, they did say that there wouldn't be an issue of applying any rental funds. Say we end up renting this for 3 weeks before we can potentially purchase or receive bids on the vehicle. If we were to move forward with the purchase of this truck after a rental period, they said they would apply those rental funds to the purchase price as well.
Mary
Well,
Jane?
Adam,
Oh, sorry. Mike?
yeah, it's Les. Yeah, Adam, is there any value at all to the existing truck or just salvage value?
I just salvage value. I've actually had the case, fellow by the name of Quincy who sold us our small excavator, and we've rented equipment from him. He's actually been working to try to find somebody that would take that on a trade-in towards the vehicle as well. But he's having a hard time moving an 87 truck without a transmission. So I would be willing to bet that we would have to do similar what we did to the old truck. Say it's at the end of its lifespan, and then probably get scrap value for it. I will be talking with McAllister or whoever we go through to see if there is any potential trade in value with that. But I don't believe we're going to get very much out of it more than what the metal's worth.
Okay. Thanks.
Mary Jane, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to add that one of the things that we talked about, and I fully support this approach, but one of the things we talked about at length in the task group was about how we would actually make the payments, and that we got into kind of a lengthy discussion about we potentially will end up using money that was earmarked for the sediment management project from that property tax increase that we had last year. And this truck will be used certainly for that, but it will also be used for all of our other dredging work. And the task group felt that we just needed to make that very clear to freeholders that we understand we made a commitment, but we're now in a situation where we need the truck before we get the bond, and we kind of need to move forward. So
and this was projected in the bond revenue, so the idea would be to utilize notes for expediency, and then when we receive the bond monies, we could go ahead and pay off the loan balance at that time. So this really just allows the acquisition of the truck in a quicker time frame.
Deborah, did you have some thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I fully support the purchase. It was always going to be part of the whole sediment management program. So using what we have budgeted right now for bond loan proceeds payback is the line item that we're going to be using to make these financing payments that are probably going to be $48,000 to $50,000 a year. I think is what we were kind of thinking. So the thought would be we've got to do that now. And because of COVID, everything else, the bond process is lagging a bit, and that we will borrow enough money and then pay that off and still have that money for, it's just a timing issue in my mind, that is all. So.
exactly.
Okay, that's how I see it as well. Anybody else?
What action do we need to take?
Really, I would request a motion for me to go ahead and start the bid request process for the issuance of notes for purchase and for the purchase of equipment.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Someone like to second?
I'll
second it. I would like just, you're going to do that, Adam, without even knowing if the 25-ton is what you're going to be looking at?
Well, I won't be able to get out those bids until at least the end of next week. So I'll get everything put together and we'll go ahead and test that out.
I'll second the motion.
And what I'll likely do is go ahead in the bid and I'll put something, 25 to 30 ton vehicle, if that works, to see if other stuff may come in.
Let me read it to you. It's a 2017 CAT 725 with 2,800 hours on it. That's what. I'm sorry. I'm proposing a little humor.
It got lost on us.
Yeah, it went right.
It has been moved and seconded that we allow Adam to proceed with the preparing the bid process documents and any other discussion? Okay, ready to vote?
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Michael K,
Yeah,
Mary Jane,
I,
Mike B,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Les,
Aye.
aye. Motion carries. Okay, we have park master plan there. Do you want to go back to that? Because I think that's where we need to.
Yeah.
Are you leaving us?
no.
Okay,
Debbie had a question, I think.
I'm sorry.
Debbie had a question, I think.
I'm sorry, Debbie, I missed you. Yes. Go
That's
ahead.
okay. It wasn't a question, but I wanted to point out in the finance committee meeting, I don't want people to get the wrong impression that we're, looking at this 25 ton when we have a 40. I mean, Adam stated that we hardly ever fill that 40 ton up. So there's a real thinking on his part that this will be better. So just wanted to clarify that.
I appreciate that.
And that'll be nice having this next week to go ahead and test it out, use it for disposal site clearing and make sure it worked. Really the only reason we have that truck that we got was because it was a bulk package with all the dredging equipment. So we'll move forward with that. On the park master plan, I do need to get a hold of the Cornerstone and go ahead and set up a time that we can have a digital meeting with the park planning group, just to go ahead and kick that off. But they have received the contract. So we just got to get that going. But in current news, I guess really just have a discussion about ongoing practices, about what our policy via this COVID is, and we get into fishermen and all that. To start off, what we have done is we've closed down the offices. I guess now it's through April 20th, according to the mandate. I have still been going in a couple times a week to process bills and carry on things that we have to do to stay on top of our government work. The gatehouse is closed down. The park closed signs are up and the gates are up. We have had some people utilizing the park, but it's usually just a handful of cars and people walking dogs or shoreline fishing. I really don't think that's much of an issue. Having the back gates locked really prevents large gatherings. You can't bring out grills and coolers and heavy equipment. So I'm not really sure there's more that needs to be done as far as limiting the use of the park. It's pretty minimal this time. I think it's pretty important for people to be able to get out and fish. We have had a ton of boaters out there. We actually developed this nice codes of conduct form for this year that emphasizes the distancing, utilization practices, and we haven't been able to hand those out since we don't have people at the gatehouse. What we are going to start doing though is printing out vehicle tags that state that we will be selling our passes via phone call and credit card. And on the backside, it will have the codes of conduct. And we're gonna go down there and kind of keep track of some of the vehicles and just leave them on their windshields. That way people can get them directly in their hand on the fishermen. We're also going to be putting signage on the gatehouse and the sign by the ramp with the codes of conduct and requesting people leave extra room between themselves and especially docks and private property during these times. In order to help limit some of the boating capacity, we had a few past couple of times we went there, we've actually had just tons of boats there, just all over, even if the back lot's not full, they're just parked all through the yard and grass, and they've kind of been a mess since we can't be there to orchestrate them. Actually, today we installed 40 additional bollards in the park, utilizing a nice gas auger that we rented. So we have put bollards along the entrance of the park and then back to our overflow areas to try to keep boats from going everywhere. And then that way, once our lots are full, there's not anywhere for them to go. So if we are hitting that type of capacity, people will not be able to continue. So I would just like to kind of open up for discussion about additional procedures, what we're thinking. I still don't believe it's time to open up the gatehouse or try to make money. We'll have some revenues, but I think we have to wait at least until the governor's mandate to even think about that.
Yeah, I think putting the stuff on people's windshields, you know, a good alternative, you know, and you got two messages there, one about buying the tags and the other one about, um, you know, the code of conduct. So I like that idea.
Adam, were you going to possibly alter or put an addendum on the fishing rules as we had discussed? It currently says 50 feet is the distance there to keep away from any given freeholder, dock, other boats, etc. During these times, we had talked about putting an addendum that they are not to be crawling on anybody's dock to retrieve a lure that they cast into someone's canopy or onto a boat. They probably shouldn't be doing that anyway, but they really shouldn't be doing it now. And Laura, that's what we've gotten some complaints about, I think, or fishermen touching people's docks and boats. And that's certainly a realistic complaint.
Yeah, we can, right now it says to, you know, not to approach docks if there's somebody there, to stay 50 feet away if not, and then try to remove lures without causing damage. But we can put in there that
Leave
you
it.
get caught on a dock, you're snipping the line.
Yeah.
So we can actually put some verbiage in there about that.
Does that sound reasonable to you all? I just don't think we need to go there anymore. We probably shouldn't have beforehand, but really not now. Mary
Docks
Jane?
and boats.
I think this all sounds great. I mean, and we need to make, and I would just stress, I think we need to maintain whatever the state mandates. And people will need to understand that.
Okay, I agree.
And in addition to that, they're speeding. Speeding is an understatement through the idle zones. I mean, the one fisherman that I actually saw him. The bow of his boat was clearly above the lake, and he left the Chitwood area and went around Bean Blossom Creek. And I would put something in there with you know, speeding through the idle zone, whatever, and then whatever consequences you put on that. And I was wondering, do you take a picture of these guys' license plates when they're parked there? Can we send them a bill?
I don't know if I want to get into that. We generally keep a list of the license plates during the season when we're open. If fishermen get there, they get there at 4 or 5 in the morning. We'll write down the license plates and leave a tag for them to pay.
Okay.
It gets a little gray, I think, taking pictures of license plates and then sending a bill, especially because I'm not sure we'd be able to find addresses. But most of the fishermen are annual pass holders, and I think putting the information there about when they can purchase them via phone call should get a lot of the permitting on that.
If you drive from Indiana into Kentucky on I-65, you get a bill because of your license plate, and you get a copy of your license plate with the bill.
Right.
Anyway, it's just a thought.
Michael K., and Debbie, I'll get to you, I promise.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is an appropriate first step. And then if we continue to see issues, just sort of like we've had to do within our parks and stuff, we keep clamping down a little bit tighter and tighter if people aren't respectful and don't use their heads. So,
Right.
you know, and Pam and I had a sort of a chat discussion or text discussion about, you know, some of the aggressive behaviors, which, I mean, honestly, each season we seem to see some of the fishers, certainly not all of them, but some of the fishers becoming more and more aggressive, fishing closer to the docks, especially when people are around, casting into our boats, creating property damage and stuff. So, you know, obviously I mean, being able to get out, do the fishing, I don't have any objections to that. And if people are respectful and follow the rules, then that's great. But if they don't, I think then we need to consider, you know, what are the next steps? And the next steps might be, especially as, you know, state mandate, I mean, the stay-at-home order remains in place. If people can't be respectful, then, you know, we block off the ability for the non-freeholders to get into the lake. So hopefully we don't have to go there, but I think that might be the messaging. You mess it up and you can fish somewhere else.
Mhm.
Debbie, I promised you I'd get to you. Laura, I see you.
Yeah, that was my thing. We can stand behind COVID as a excuse right now, but we had a lot of the same discussion last year, and we were out at the lake yesterday cleaning up, and there was just people like right at our dock fishing. So I'm just saying, what's our teeth? We can post all these great codes of conduct, but how are we going to enforce it? And I think that's what Mike is getting to. Like, what's the next step? Like, what do we threaten to do? Should there be signage at certain places around the lake? I mean, that's where gathering a license plate might give us some access to of, there has to be a consequence to their actions or their behaviors.
Yeah, I mean, the thing
Last year,
is,
we requested that anybody that has repeat offenders, we try to contact them. If there's repeat offenders, if you take note of the IN numbers and certainly we can the license plates, we can contact them. And it's well within our authority to just take people's ability away to use the lake. We can absolutely, if you have repeat offenders, say, all right, you've lost it, and then we can enforce
Have you done it before? Have we ever done that?
Yes, we have absolutely kicked fishers off the lake before, and actually an entire fishing club we don't even allow have tournaments anymore. So,
Laura, you had a
so,
comment or a question?
Yeah, Adam, I think this might be a time to open up discussion with the city on, we're in uncharted territory here, and we have to leave that ramp open. It's in our contract, but with this situation, should there be something added that in this, that we can close it down, that we do have that ability if we have a virus again in the fall or whatever, if it comes back, we might need to make some adjustments in that.
in the finance committee, we did briefly mention that, and I am going to be getting a hold of Chris Wheeler, the CBU's attorney, to go ahead and get his input on that. We would have to have their authority to go ahead and close it down since it is a public lake under their control, and our lease does mandate that we keep it open during reasonable hours. So I will be getting a hold of Chris Wheeler, asking him about that, and it'd be nice if they went ahead and said, hey, if we get to the point to authorize us to do that.
Well, it seems like if the government is mandating that the parks be shut down, that this is part of the parks, and we should be able to address that with the park.
Mary Jane, did you have a comment?
Other than I agree wholeheartedly, I was going to kind of echo what Laura just said, and I am going to have to excuse myself from the meeting. So
Okay, thank you.
I like meeting this way.
Yeah, it's nice to see you all. All right, thank you.
okay, I've got a couple comments.
Yes, sure, Les.
Okay, so, it sounds like our only means of enforcement is barring the people from the park. But, giving people tickets, usually gets their attention as well. But it sounds like we don't really have that authority. So I'm kind of wondering if we were able to swing a deal with the IUPD cadets again, if they would have the authority, since they would be, sworn peace officers and that sort of thing. Adam, what do you think? And have you had any more contact with their police chief?
I did contact the new police chief, and I've contacted with the guy that's actually in charge of their recruiting. As of now, I have not heard back of anybody that's available. I think the school kind of shutting down has put a little bit of impediment on availability of cadets that are there since they're no longer on the campus.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just thinking if we could somehow finagle authority to issue tickets, that would be, a way to hold people responsible. Because, right now, I mean, there's nobody out there. I mean, you can really do whatever you want, and there's nobody out there to stop you.
And people know it. Yes, Mike B.
Is the patrol boat in the water?
It is not. We've got a couple of calls in to the company on the lake that puts it in and de-winterizes it. But as of now, it's not on the water.
I mean, that would be the deterrent is get the patrol boat. We can staff the patrol boat because of public safety. People keep talking about COVID. We can do that. We can staff it. And then I think we have some kind of technology where we can call DNR and we can
call them. DNR will only enforce the state regulations. They've told us this time and time again. And as soon as we can get the boat on the water, I agree. I think it'd be great for myself or Alex to be able to get out there on nice days, especially during this time, and go drive around and yell at people.
Just also a note of clarification, we talked about the mandate to close parks and stuff, and the state parks are open and they're not charging, so they're really got a deal going similar to us. The only thing is any facilities that they have, like campgrounds, nature centers, all that kind of stuff, is not open, but you can still go there and go hiking and drive around and sightsee and stuff. So I think we're on par with what those other folks are doing at this point.
Debbie?
That's what I was going to ask Michael, if you knew that when the statement was made. I looked at the CBU's website just the other day on Parks and Recs, and it's my understanding those parks are open. They're
Yeah.
just the behavior. I thought maybe you could enlighten us, Michael.
Yeah, correct. I mean, they're not mandating that parks themselves be closed. Components of parks, playgrounds, public, I forget the term that the governor used, but public attractions, basically, places that people congregate are things that are intended to be closed. Amusement is what he said, public amusement. But open grounds, the governor during some of his press conferences has openly encouraged people to go out onto the trails, use the state parks and stuff. So you're absolutely right. The park itself isn't mandated to be closed, but taking those actions like we have to make sure that we're not staffing the gates and those type of things, keeping kind of those public areas where people gather, the northern part of the park locked up like we have. Those are all consistent with what the intent of the governor's executive order is. So
The problem is not the park, it's the behavior of the people in
Right.
it. We were in Florida just before all this really started shutting down, and they were closing public beaches. Michael, I think I texted you about this.
Yes.
You go to the same spots we do, but the people gather in these massive groups. There could be no safer place than a beach, but not if you've got 30 of you.
Right on top of each other. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so hard to understand. And I do feel for the Nashville folks, as much as this is good business for them, they're scared. From what I'm reading, they've got motorcyclists in that IGA parking lot partying like there's no tomorrow, and it's not a party or a vacation. But anyway, it's a tough thing.
And we should hopefully have the patrol boat on here soon. We have the calls out there, so as soon as it's on, then we can start.
Have they answered? Because they would be an essential business, if I understood Laura correctly yesterday in a conversation or over the weekend. If they're working on boats, they have to be open.
Yes, they are listed as essential. Boat repair, yes.
They can
So
be open, yeah. I haven't heard anything back, but hopefully. Here
Okay.
Art is work. If it's Art, he is working.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
So.
All right.
Hey, before we leave this topic, Adam, just one more question. Just to clarify, the contract for the master plan has been signed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it's a done deal. I mean, we have a scope of work. You're all real comfortable with that?
Yes, yeah, I do. And Pam actually looked over that when we did the final contract, the professional services agreement. And I actually have been having some emails, and I'll get an email out to you and Mike as well, to the Parks Task Group here early next week, and we'll go ahead and set up a time to a digital meeting along with Cornerstone. So we'll get moving on that here.
Okay, and so were there any changes from the review that Mike and I had initially done?
I don't think so, not really, no. The only thing that they requested was that we did the period of time for 1 year from once they actually received the contract. So I believe it had the end date in mid-January of 2021. They think it will be done prior to that, but they did request 1 year.
Okay.
So.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, and that's a fair request.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else on this topic? Okay, it would be at this juncture that we would have public comment, and I'll just say to you folks who've been kind enough to tune in, thank you. We appreciate you. We will work going forward as to maybe a more interactive style if we need to continue this for very long. I'm not sure if you heard me at the beginning. You may not have the feed may not have started. Does anybody have any new business for future agenda?
I just wondered, Alex, can you tell how many people are on the YouTube page right now?
Yep, there are 7 people watching now. We've been streaming for 69 minutes, and I've got Kathy McClure and Malcolm, Brian Postlethwaite, Ann Robluski, and Vince Britt all, quote, signed in on the chat screen.
Very nice.
Very well. All right, as you see on your agenda, we are going to determine the next board meeting date as things change. I would envision a May meeting would be another of this style, but you know, nobody knows for sure. So at this point, we will leave that to be announced. Has this time, the 4 o'clock time slot, worked for you all? Should we need to do this again instead of waiting till 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Everybody's good? Okay.
Like I said, I'm so busy, you know, I mean, I have so much to do. No,
Well,
I can do it anytime.
okay. Michael Klitzing, I know it might have been more of a challenge for you, so we're glad you could join in.
Fortunately, I've got a 2 o'clock with the mayor every day with all the city department heads. And usually I don't have anything booked at 4 o'clock just because. And so usually we're off by 4, so it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, very well. Well, I want to thank Adam and Alex especially for their extra efforts. You all made, you know, they got a little time away from the office, but they've been working hard. Adam is through there, I know, a few times a day. I'm glad you guys both live close. That makes me sleep better at night. Everybody's working hard in some way or another, and this is not an easy time, but it will get better. And I'm glad to see you all well. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Alex, sorry,
Yes.
Michael. Alex, sign Scott Adamson in.
Scott Adamson.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you make a motion to
I will
adjourn?
second the motion.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Laura,
Yes.
Michael K,
Who made the motion?
I did.
Michael Klitzing, and it was
Thank you.
seconded by Mike Blackwell.
And
Thank
I
you.
vote aye.
Thank you, Mike B.
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
Les,
All right.
aye. Motion or meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Stay safe. Stay
You too.
happy.
Thank you.
Keep smiling.
Thank you.
Smiling's not contagious.